Ah! My chest!
What's wrong?
I can't breathe.
Your heart just stopped. Stay with me. Think 1, 2, right, 4.
Now suddenly all of it is interrupted. Your blood was carrying oxygen across nearly every inch of your body. Your brain was quietly turning reality into thought, and now all of it has gone silent. This is the exact moment every human spends their life trying not to think about. Second zero. Most people imagine death as a single instant, but the body doesn't die that way. Death is slower than people think. Your heart stops first, but the rest of you keeps going. For a few seconds, your brain still believes you are alive, and that may be the strangest part of all. Because even after blood stops moving, billions of neurons continue firing inside your skull. Tiny electrical storms still flash through your mind. Your thoughts may still exist. Your awareness may still be there. You may still hear the room around you, but then something changes. The oxygen begins running out, and the brain notices immediately. Your brain uses enormous amounts of oxygen every second just to maintain consciousness. And consciousness is expensive. The moment oxygen delivery stops, the brain enters survival mode. Reality itself begins to destabilize. Vision starts failing first. Not your eyes themselves, your perception. The edges of reality begin collapsing inward. Shapes lose meaning. Light separates into fragments. Then sound begins drifting away. Voices become distant, warped, almost underwater. And this is where the illusion breaks. Because reality was never created by the world around you. Your brain takes darkness and turns it into sight, vibrations and turns them into voices, electrical signals and turns them into you. But once the system starts shutting down, reality itself begins to unravel. And yet the human brain doesn't go quietly. What happened next surprised researchers. In several studies involving dying patients and animals, scientists observed something completely unexpected. The brain became hyperactive, not random activity, not meaningless noise. Organized surges of gamma waves appeared across the brain, the same type of activity associated with dreaming, intense focus, and waking consciousness. For a brief moment, the dying brain may become unusually awake, and nobody fully understands why. Some researchers believe this could explain near-death experiences, because people who survive clinical death rarely describe emptiness. They describe experiences that feel impossible to forget. Time stops behaving normally. Seconds feel like minutes. Minutes feel infinite. The mind no longer tracks time the way it does in life. It becomes something else entirely. A place without direction, without sequence, only experience. Some describe seeing their life unfold all at once, not as a story, but as a single field of memory. Everything happening at the same time. Childhood, adulthood, forgotten moments, compressed into one awareness. And strangely, there is no sense of panic in many reports, only observation. As if the mind is no longer fighting to survive, but simply watching itself exist. But this calm state doesn't last, because the body is still collapsing beneath it. Cells begin switching energy systems. Oxygen-based processes fail. Backup systems activate, but this backup comes at a cost. A buildup of chemicals that the body cannot remove anymore. Lactic acid starts accumulating, slowly altering every remaining signal in the body. Muscles begin to lose coordination completely. No signals are arriving from the brain. No commands are being processed. The body is still present, but no longer being directed. And yet the brain still holds on to something, a final illusion of control, as if it is delaying the inevitable ending of awareness itself. But then something even stranger begins to surface. Reports from revived patients often include something unexpected, not darkness, not silence, but presence, a feeling of being somewhere else, sometimes described as floating above the body, watching everything from a distance, not as a dream, but as something more real than waking life. And this raises a deeper question. If the body is gone, why does awareness still feel located somewhere? Why does consciousness refuse to immediately disappear? Is the brain producing one final simulation, or is something else happening entirely? Science cannot fully answer this yet, but the pattern is consistent enough to be undeniable. Something happens in those final moments that feels like transition, not ending, but movement, from one state of existence into another. And as oxygen continues to drop, the final phase begins. The final phase begins. Not with silence, but with the last burst of activity. Because even in collapse, the brain does not shut down evenly. Some regions fail faster than others. And this uneven failure creates a strange effect. Fragments of awareness begin to break apart. Thoughts no longer connect in sequence. They become isolated moments, snapshots. A face, a sound, a feeling, disconnected from time. And somewhere inside this fragmentation, the sense of self begins to dissolve. Not suddenly, but gradually. Like a signal losing strength across distance. And yet the mind still tries to hold on, still tries to make meaning, even when there is nothing left to interpret. This is where many near-death accounts become most difficult to explain, because people don't describe nothing. They describe experience, a tunnel, a light, a presence, or complete stillness filled with awareness. But all of them agree on one thing. There was no sense of being gone, only being elsewhere. And this contradiction is what makes the phenomenon so powerful. Because biology says one thing, but subjective experience says another. And in those final seconds, the brain may be generating its most intense activity of all, a final surge, a last attempt to organize everything it has ever stored, every memory, every emotion, every pattern of recognition, compressed into one closing moment, as if the mind is replaying existence itself before releasing it. But even this idea is uncertain, because no one has ever returned with full clarity of what happens at the exact end. All we have are fragments, reports, patterns, and silence in between. And that silence is what makes the question so powerful. Because if consciousness is truly just a biological process, then it should stop instantly. But if experience continues even slightly beyond structure, then everything we assume about life may be incomplete. And that leaves only one question. Not what happens when we die, but how much of us continues for a moment after we believe everything has already ended. Because the truth is, we do not know where consciousness goes in that final instant. We only know what it feels like from the edge. And every account that returns from that edge sounds less like an ending, and more like a transition we do not yet understand. Maybe death is not a single moment. Maybe it is a process of unbinding, layer by layer, signal by signal, memory by memory, until nothing remains to hold you together. Or maybe something remains longer than we think, waiting in that final unknown space between biology and experience. A space science has not fully mapped yet, and until it does, the last minute of life remains one of the greatest unanswered mysteries. Not because we have no theories, but because we have never truly been able to observe it from the inside. Only experience it. Only experience it. And by the time anyone understands it, it may already be too late to describe it, because every answer we have so far comes from people who came back, not from those who continued forward. And that is where the mystery truly begins, in what we can remember and what we may never be able to confirm, because the last minute after death is not just a biological event. It is the point where observation ends and something else begins.